Yes, you are now listening to the sounds of Sports Reports is Ordered. And we got the even kill. Born in Texas, raised in VA, representing New Jerusalem, dedicated father, dedicated vet. Do not bring feelings to a fact fight.
Don't do it.
Have your P's and Q's in line. He is Mr. Logical. And then, of course, it is I, your unorthodox statistician, going left so much that you thought I was southpaw. Bam! Watch for the hook. The one and only 2-5. And tonight, we're going to talk about it. We might as well talk about it. Tomorrow, the end is here. The Celtics put their foot down and they said, no more of you, Dallas. And then we're going to take a little case study. We're going to do it a little differently tonight. It started on Jason Tatum, but I think we can apply it across the board. So take this journey with us. Like, subscribe, review, share, email us, Insta us, tweet at us, all the things. Do it for free. Let's get this thing started with Get It Off My Chest. So I will take the lead on this one. You know what I'm saying? Because I know Mr. Logical gonna, dig. He gonna dig into his soul with his Get It Off My Chest.
Man? My soul hurts. It's gonna be a lot of just 4-letter words.
Yeah, my Get It Off My Chest is pretty lighthearted. I am serious about it, but it ain't that deep. We'll see if Mr. Logical has heard this story yet. So, once upon a time, actually, it was just this afternoon, as I was doing my daily scrub of CBSSports.com, I ran across something that caught my eye. Usually, like there's some kind of eye candy involved there, but this one was a statement. Usually Tracy Wolfson, but not today. So as I was looking, the Big 12 is in preliminary talks with their athletic directors of taking money from companies for their naming rights. So, like, for example, the Baltimore Ravens play at M&T Bank Stadium. The Carolina Panthers play at Bank of America Stadium. So in this particular piece, they were quoting Pete Thamel from ESPN, who was saying that Allstate, the insurance company, may try to give the Big 12 $1 billion in investment to create either the All-State 12 Conference or the Big All-State Conference.
Wait, naming the conference after a company?
Yes.
I thought it was like the stadium or like maybe the thing on the jersey. I didn't think it was going to be like naming the... Okay, keep going. My bad.
Yeah. So the
caught me off guard.
So the point of this for the Big 12, for example, is that their football teams only bring in $31.7 million with their TV deal. But you're competing against a conference like the Big 10, who's bringing in $75 million with this new deal that they just signed last year. So it sounds like Allstate or whoever this company will be wants 20% of the Big 12's earnings once they make the investment to get the naming rights. But then that gives the Big 12 more money to give to their schools to try to compete with the Big 10 as far as NIL, trying to create playoff contenders, infrastructure, so on and so forth, so they can try to build a competitive level versus being behind where they are right now. So, of course, the only problem with this is if it's a success, then what stops the Big 12 and the Big 10 and SEC from doing the same thing and just leaving you back in the dust where you were? So that's first and foremost. Second of all, what happens in 10 years when the Big 12 current commissioner, Brett Yormark, is probably not the Big 12 commissioner anymore because he's moved on or something else? Now the new commissioner is stuck with whatever this is. What if it doesn't work? What's the contract here? Are we going to have the All-State 12 conference one year and then have the Texaco conference next year. 2 years, it'll be the Chick-fil-A conference. After that, said it'll be the 7-11-12 conference.
They already got the names for the bowl games. Just this is getting excessive, man. Like,
yeah. So we're going to end up at a point where these schools have too much money, which they already do. Then they know what to do with. And I get the idea behind it in some ways, because I know, like, in soccer, you have the UEFA and all this kind of stuff that are sponsored, like McDonald's and so on and so forth. But that's a tournament.
It's a tournament, or their individual teams. It's not like there's not like 8 teams and the English Premier League that are sponsored by British Petroleum. And they get like extra money from BP, and the other 10 teams don't.
Right. And that was going to be the next step. So since you said that was going to be the next step of my soliloquy, because I was thinking about this. How do you split up the money? Because you got teams like Oklahoma State, for example, that have been in the Big 12 since the Big 12's creation. But then you have a school like, say, Utah, who has been the back-to-back Pac-12 champion and all of that, before this season. They are coming into the Big 12 this year, probably going to be one of the favorites. But this is your first year in the Big 12. So if this goes through, is there seniority in place? Like, how do we make this split? Does everybody split it equally? Are there certain criteria or parameters that you have to meet?
Best bet you got to split it equally. Just like the owners do with the revenue in every sport. The Jaguars owner gets the same amount of money as the Panthers.
Well, but in college football, we've seen USC and UCLA got what the rest of the Pac-12 schools didn't get. Texas and Oklahoma got what the rest of the Big 12 schools didn't get. We're currently talking about, is Florida State and Clemson going to get something different from the rest of the ACC schools, since they're the ones that draw the eyeballs. So this can go anywhere, and I'm here for it to see how this ends up, because everybody was mad when the players were able to get money and get paid, and it was going to ruin the sport. What do you have to say now?
They're gonna get crazy.
As a wise man on this show,
if I get $1 billion, I'm buying every 5-star position. Oklahoma State. If I get that much money, you won't score a touchdown on me. We win in every game, 70-0.
As a wise man sitting across from me once told me, it's no fun when the rabbit got the gun, is it?
The rabbit got the money. Damn money. Yo, I'm telling you, man, like a lot of people, we had conversations earlier this week, and we were talking about like socioeconomic status. We were talking about like where you live, living conditions, education. What it boils down to, sadly and surely, is the reason we do this show that we do in this format. Like, it's money. If we had more money, like if we had the same money that JJ Redick and LeBron put into their podcast, we could fly and meet in LA, or meet in New York, or meet in some winery in Dallas and record there, because they just have, it's not what they know, because what they know, we could study that. Like, you can get 2 high school basketball coaches that probably know all about the plays that they ran for their 10, 15 years that they've been high school basketball coaches, and they can sit in a room and have the same podcast as JJ and LeBron, but they just have the money. The money allows them access to gain people, and then people who want more money use them to access people to get more money in. The money is really the money turning people to a monster. Like Meek Mill said, it's like the money turned the noodles into pasta. Like, it's literally changing the fortunes to the point where if you just want to play football, or if you want to play basketball, and like all you want to do is just play college sports, you're probably gonna be better off going like D2, D3, or some kind of JUCO, and just continue your playing, because going to one of these other schools that get all this money and you're a 4 or 5-star recruit, you roll that ankle and you can't play for 3 weeks, man, you might as well go and shut it down.
Yep. But yeah, that's not getting it off my chest, like, saying, and I've been seeing it all over Twitter, so it wasn't, or X, so it wasn't my idea, but Big 12, you got to be the Buc-ee's conference. The Buc-ee's 12.
Yo, can we get the Wawa East though?
There you go.
I'm
You
already
know what I'm
buying
saying?
into this. This is what money does. Money makes you change your morals. Because I hate.
There
As
you
soon as
have
you
it.
said it, I hated it. I'm like, this is awful. As soon as I got the gist of what it meant, because at first I thought it was like the NBA. Because at first I didn't like the NBA having like the
The
one
sponsoring
advertiser
on the
on the
jerseys.
dirt.
Yeah.
Then I believe the WNBA they had it like soccer where it was like the whole front, like soccer jerseys. I think like the Barcelona, I think their jersey still says Qatar Airways on the front,
Yeah.
but it just becomes like a part of like what you see, so it's not the same.
But that's
Whereas like
like you
I
said, that's an
grew,
individual team too.
yeah, but I grew up seeing the Bears logo or the word Lakers across or Celtics, so it would blow my mind if it was like Bumble. I mean, like it wouldn't look the same. Whereas when I look at a European team, a team I had never followed growing up, and it's you know Coca-Cola, to me is okay. That's Bayern Munich. I don't think that's Bayern Munich's label, but like whatever Bayern Munich's on the front of their jersey, if it's Coca-Cola, if it's Sprite, whatever it is, that's their jersey. I didn't grow up seeing that, but like the Kansas jersey behind you, if it said like Mountain Dew, like that's weird. That'd be weird to me. So that's what I thought it was. But when you said they're going to change the name of the conference to Mountain Dew West, come on. Can you?
Hey,
I
that's
hate it.
perfect right there. The Sierra Mist West, all that stuff. But
Sierra Miss.
but yeah, that was my get it off my chest though. Like I said, something light, but it was just something that stood out to me.
Yeah. My get off my chest is a long-standing uh, battle and relationship with the good old Atlanta Falcons down there in Georgia and the Mercedes Dome. Like the fact that they named their Mercedes Benz when the Saints still had that name, that bothered me. Something I did like, I like the cheap prices that they had on like the food and the concessions. But they had a Chick-fil-A in the stadium, which is cool, but they play most of their games on Sundays, and Chick-fil-A's not open on Sunday. So I was like, well, that's stupid.
I know. I was
So
mad
like,
when I was up in there.
so I sometimes I like the idea, then I hate it, and I like the idea and I hate it. And some years back, I believe maybe like it's probably like 10 years now, Atlanta got fined for pumping in like crowd music and sound into the stadium. They lost like a 5th-round pick. I'm like, that's stupid. But then this Kirk Cousins tampering thing that occurred, they got fined $250,000 to the team, $50,000 to the GM, which I imagine that the team is probably going to pay. I don't know if they're going to make him pay out of his pocket. It just kind of puts the cupcake and then the dynamite stick in the top of it for how you sum up how poorly you can construct an off season when you had like a clean slate in front of you. Like I say this to my barber. I have a haircut appointment tomorrow, right? I haven't had a haircut in a couple of weeks. My hair's getting kind of thick. So my barber's like, yo, I like when you go a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, because that way I got like this new canvas. I can come with this other idea, whatever. Like when I have this much hair, especially for me, you can't mess it up because I only really get a couple of different kinds of haircuts. So it's like you have a great opportunity. Like, you know what? The hairline grew back in, the part grew back in, so you could get a different design, whatever the case may be. It's like the world is your oyster. Atlanta had a good young core of running backs, good young physical receiving core, and they knew we need to get a quarterback, we need to get a head coach, we need to get a quarterback, and we need to make moves with these draft picks that we have.
Mm-hmm.
They go get a retread coach that they could have hired a couple years ago and they didn't. They let walk, and he didn't have success in other places. So they bring him back. Okay, cool. I'll lean on that. I'm good to go. Then you go get a quarterback that's fresh off a Achilles tear that happened in November, and then you give him $45 million a year. It's like, okay, he's in his 30s. But maybe we get a few good years out of him. That's the going rate for quarterbacks now. Like you rationalize it. Then the draft comes. It's like, all right, bet. We paid Jesse Bates last year in the offseason. We're gonna get a nice defensive piece. or we're gonna go all in, greatest show on turf, a la Kurt Warner, Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt, Ricky Prohl. Like, we're gonna go that way with it. Marshall Faulk, we're just gonna like, you know what? We're gonna hit them with waves and try to get 28 to 31 points a week and hope the defense can keep the score under 24. And we go, 13-4. Nah. We're gonna go get the backup for the guy that we need in 3 years. And then we get fined for talking to the guy early. So it's like, so you jumped out the window and risked $300,000 in a draft pick, because now they only have 6 draft picks next year, which they've been butchering the last few years. Like, they've been picking players in the wrong spot. They haven't made any good trades. It's like just a cataclysmic, just fallacy of just trust and just everything just falling apart. It's literally falling apart before it begins. And I know it's going to go bad. No one's going to get fired. And I'm going to have to deal with the same thing next year when we're still doing this show, hopefully from a bigger studio with a bigger audience. But I'll have the same complaints, because you go out here and risk getting fined for tampering just to get a guy, just to immediately piss him off 6 weeks later, 6 months before the season starts. And as soon as he goes to the stadium and it's 70,000 seats, but it's 32,000 to 42,000 fans, and he throws a game-ending pick against Pittsburgh, which is likely because our right tackle is terrible, and TJ Watt's going to kill him, and Cameron Hayward's going to kill on the inside because our right guard is awful. The left tackle isn't great either. So he's going to get pressure in his face all day long with a 30-something-year-old quarterback. Then he gets to go to Philly the next week. They're going to be packed, cussing him out. I want to go to the game. I don't know if I can stomach it. So they're going to get mollywopped in, and then they get the Chiefs at home. So you butcher the entire offseason. You don't get the coach in place. You get the wrong, like, I'm going to call it now, you got the wrong quarterback in place because you already have an idea of replacing them, and now you're going to put them out there 0-3 and starting 0-4. The whole conversation is going to be, why do you have this guy? And no one's going to lose their job. No one's going to lose anything. I'm just going to be sitting here yelling at my computer. Oh, I'm not going. Don't worry about it, Mike. I'm not going. I'm not going. I'm not crossing the border into Philly to see that game at all. Best case scenario, you hit a dive bar. But
how Falcon is it though? How Falcon is it?
It's the most Falcon thing ever
to get penalized for tampering with a dude in rehab.
A 40-year-old dude, a dude that could have been in high school with us, a dude that could have been catching the bus with us in high school, damn near, or real close.
Tampering with a dude called Kirko Chains,
and then going out and getting. They could have just got Michael Penix, and we wouldn't have the tampering problem. We would still have the $90 million. Maybe we could have kept Calais Campbell and gave him a little bit. He could have stayed. Or maybe, it's just so many. You could have traded down to like 11, maybe. Like, you could have done so many things, but it's like you could have got a better coach. I'm not
Dallas Turner or something.
I'm not knocking Raheem Morris. I think everybody deserves their shot, but you already gave him a shot. And then you had an opportunity to keep him, and then you didn't. And it's like, how much more did he learn from Sean McVay? That when he came back, he was a different dude.
Right.
Yeah. So I hate to, take a lot of time on this, but it just goes to show how we talked about our case study of like how teams just continually put themselves behind the 8 ball. Like, this is the kind of thing. And it's like, this is what we're getting publicly. I have no idea how the contract negotiations work. I have no idea if guys are sitting down and their market value is $12 million a year, but we're offering them 8.5.
Right.
And it's like, is this why we're losing corners every year? Like, is this why we can't keep a solid defensive core? Because you only offer big money to the top free agents that are out there. And if you get them, you do. But it's just like I said, the stuff that we see publicly is a personification of idiocracy. But yet, what are we getting behind the scenes? Like, the whole point where he was trying to explain the draft pick, they've been trying to explain the draft pick for like the 2 weeks after the draft. It's like, dog, you're not fooling anybody. You're smart, but you're not doing anything. You're not doing anything smart.
Shout out.
And that's the thing. But it's like you're a room full, and I think the problem is there's a room full of smart people, and no one wants to tell the other smart person, like, yo, you did the dumbest thing imaginable with the last 6 weeks and with $200 million. Because you got to pay Penix. Penix probably got like 30 or 40 million, right? At 8. Because I think the tackle that went to Tennessee, I believe at 7, right?
Yeah.
He got 32 million. So you figure the quarterback at 8 got 30. So you put $210 million and one guy you don't want to start and the other guy you can't bench. and you blew $300,000 in fines.
Facts. Shout out to the longest get it off my chest and show history. You get history on Sports Reports is ordered. You know,
it's like how, like, it's in, like, we're gonna talk about as we transition to NBA finals and this conversation for the rest of the game. It's like we're just fans of sport.
Right.
I've never been an intern in any organization. The closest I've been to like the nuance and the minutia of an organization is being like a volunteer board member on my son's youth football. And those conversations about money and equipment and practice schedules and training and, you know, health waivers and insurance. So we're having like real conversations, but we're not having like in-depth conversations about the defense and how to build a team. We're just trying to get kids in, get the equipment, get the stickers on the helmet, make sure the jersey matches the helmet, and, you know, getting concessions. We're getting all this stuff put together. And we're a group of people with full-time jobs, multiple kids that play for the teams. We do everything else. And we put on flawless events every single opportunity we get. Shout out to Northern Brunswick Junior Greyhounds. Win championships. Like we're revered in this area for playing football. And it's like, because we sit around and we have common sense discussions. When these picks come in, like I'm gonna even go back to the Daniel Jones at 6 for the Giants. They had 6 and 17. No one was looking for Daniel Jones. You could have got the best player available at 6 and still got Daniel Jones at 17, or move 17 up to 10 if it looked like somebody was trying to creep up. But you could have bolstered your defense and still got your guy. Because that was the original conversation we had earlier about, you know, quarterbacks, but that'll be a part of the criticism, and I'll tie it in. But it's just I don't understand how you and I can have a conversation and someone listening, watching on YouTube, be like, you know what, those two guys are making a lot of sense, but yet the people who get paid $200,000-$300,000 a year butcher it. Blows my mind.
Complacency, bro. Complacency. You know, so transitioning on. You know, I remember back in 2011, there used to be this joke about how, you know, you could never get $1 from LeBron because he only give you 3 quarters. So as I transition to the NBA Finals, looking at Luka Doncic here, indulge me for a second, Mr. Logical.
I got it.
So Luka Doncic, right? He hasn't had much help in the NBA Finals in this series. You know, like it's easy to see, you know, whatever the case may be. But in the first 3 quarters in this series, he has 81 points on 32 for 59 shooting, which comes out to 54%. In the fourth quarters, 8 points, 3 of 15, 20%. So what I thought of watching this is James Harden from the standpoint of all season long, you know, back, and I'm talking about Houston James Harden. So those of you that'll see the thumbnail, that's why it's Houston James Harden, because that's what I'm talking about. But when I look at Houston James Harden all season long, he was good for 40-point triple doubles, 50-point triple doubles, might have even had a 60-point triple double.
With like 14 assists. It was something crazy.
Yeah, wins MVP, all this kind of stuff. And then the late, great Kobe Bean Bryant came out and said, you can't win a championship playing that style of basketball. So we get to the playoffs, and then James Harden has had some things. You know, I always talk about Game 6 against the Spurs. Kawhi Leonard didn't even play, and James Harden went 2 for 10 in an elimination game. You know, against the Warriors, you know, 27 straight missed threes. Not all him, but you're the leader on the floor, damn it.
Pump fake and go to the hoop.
Yeah. 2 for 13, game 7 last year against the Celtics. So when I look at Luka Doncic, that's what I see is this person that is all everything. People like Dakota, aka Dallas Mike, in the comments was talking about how Luka should have been MVP this season because he was averaging 35, damn near a triple double. You know what I mean? But the problem with dudes like Luka is they play how they play. They don't adapt. They don't change anything, regardless of what the defense is throwing at them. They just say, I'm good enough to keep throwing shit at the wall, and eventually it won't slide anymore. And it's not true. And that's what we're seeing partially in this NBA Finals is, as I said before game 1, Boston just has too many options.
Yeah. Too many green lights. All those green jerseys, a lot of green lights. One thing that I heard yesterday, Kevon Looney was talking about being a role player, and Luka need to get the role players involved early. And I get it. And like I said the same thing because we talked about LeBron does it. A couple other players do it. Let these guys get their shots off early. Just keep feeding them the ball. Luka knows he has the green light to put up 28 shots. He can come down and shoot 7 shots in a row if he wanted. If they work the ball around, got back to him, someone's gonna try to get it back to him. He can take as many shots as he wants. But early on, just I don't think Dallas runs any pick and roll for anybody else other than Kyrie and Luka. Like no one's in any real basketball action when they have the ball in their hand. It's the 2 wing guys are pick and pop or spot ups, and then the big is slash to the hoop, look for the lob, or get the rebound. That's it. It's like there's no one else that really gets any action. Like if you look at Boston, Pritchard's in the pick and roll, Horford's involved in the pick and roll. Hauser's your pick and pop guy, but he's normally coming off somebody else is setting the screen, like a back screen coming off of that. Tatum obviously is in the pick and roll, Brown's in the pick and roll, Drew Holiday in the pick and roll, Porzingis when he plays. Like there's so many guys that put Denver and the Dallas defenders into action. Boston just stands there and just waits for Luka to call for his one, and he wants what's the guy was out there? The guy that they got from Memphis in the trade that hit the 1-3 in the corner, Tillman. He would call for Tillman, and Tillman was like, "All right, cool. I'm gonna just stay 7 feet away from you. If you shoot this 27-foot 3 and make it, then that's fine. But I'm not gonna D you up, let you blow by, and let you kick it out." It's like, okay. It's a single coverage. So he has to recognize that, they're not going to double me. You guys got to do something on the backside. Lively, you got to set the screen for, Derrick Jones Jr. Somebody, you got to help somebody else get open. But you have to recognize that because, we're watching it. We see it. The people on TV are talking about, hey, they're not doubling Luke at all. Like, someone has to be able to say, hey, you're not getting doubled. The reason you're not getting doubled is because they want to do this. We need to figure out something else that's going to make them move. At a minimum, if you set a screen on, whoever's covering Tim Hardaway, if you put him in the game and he gets a wide open look, yeah, he's been off, but eventually if you get him 4 of those, he's got to get you 1 or 2.
Speaking of which, are you aware that Tim Hardaway hasn't hit a shot since May 18th?
What? Hold on. Say it out loud in English. He hasn't hit a shot since May 18th?
Since May 18th. That was the last time he hit a shot. Now, he hasn't been playing very much, and he's only taken 7 shots in the finals, but still.
But did you see when Derek White tried to foul him when they had a foul to give?
He even told the ref,
and he put his hand up, and the ref
the ref was like, nah, let's get out of here, dog.
He grabbed him by his arm with both hands, and then Tim Hardaway was wide open because everyone stopped thinking that the foul was going to get caught and missing. It's like, dog, you're not making a case. Like, I'm trying to advocate for you on my podcast, and then I see the play happen. I'm like, dog, you had no one running at you. I mean, granted, the clock is running down and you got to hit the 3, but I think they were down 7 at that point, maybe 8. and he missed it. And it's like, and then Missoula was mad at the ref, like, yo, I know you saw that happen right in front of you. And I'm like,
Now,
what do
ref
you,
was like, "We're done here,
as a
bro."
ref, what are you looking at? No, that's the thing. That hurts. I think that hurts Boston. If that 3 goes in, then it's, it's granted, yeah,
Yeah.
it's still Miracle at the Meadowlands, kind of like, Miracle at Madison Square Garden, they make it happen. But what they were trying to do was to make them take the ball back out and reset up
Right.
and burn more clock, not give up a free open look 3, granted, to the guy who hasn't made
You
a
know what's
shot
crazy to
in
me?
3 weeks.
Like, the whole big joke is we done with the 80s. You know what I'm saying? But this series made me want the 80s for a second. From the standpoint of last night, for example, Kyrie and Luka took 55 combined shots. Dallas as a team took 86. The problem that I have, because I'm the stat guy. So the problem that I have is Derek Lively shooting 70% in the series, Gafford shooting 80%. And I'm not saying that they're doing anything remarkable. That's on 25 total shots in 3 games, first of all. But last
That's
night,
still high.
but last night when I looked around the floor, you know what I did not see? I did not see a 7'3" unicorn. You know what I'm saying?
What is
I did
Horford? We give Horford 6'9", 6'10".
I give him 6'9". I give him 6'9". But I didn't see a 7'3" unicorn. What I did see at times was Gafford with Tatum near him being the closest defender at times. You know what? Put your back on him. I'm not saying that you even got to take the shot, but act like you got to move, let the defense collapse on you, get an easier shot for bums like
There's
PJ Washington and Derek Jones.
The plan, if I'm defensively and I'm scouting Dallas, plan A is Luka. Luka get the ball, create where you think a play can be made, whether it's you in the paint, you shooting a 3, or you kind of kicking out to a guy in the corner or whatever the case may be. So that's plan A. Plan B is Luka give the ball to Kyrie, go stand in the corner and take a break because you're being like hunted defensively. So save some energy, which is realistic. Because LeBron did the same thing when he had Kyrie on his team. KD did it when he was out there with Golden State. Steph never stops moving. He's always moving. Shaq did the same thing when he had Kobe. He's like, all right, I'm out here. I'm going to play defensively for 3 or 4 possessions. You take over the offensive end. I'm going to be a big man. You can pick and pop off of me. And then plan C is scramble off, try to get offensive rebound, scramble off of that. Any one of you other guys available, you can take a look after that. But plan A, Luka, plan B, Kyrie, plan C is you other guys create off the rebound. Because no one, it's not even a time where a different guy brings the ball up. It's not like, because Boston's not pressuring, they're not trapping, they're not full court pressing, they're not doing, their defense isn't like Minnesota where it's just like it's hounding. Like Chris Broussard said, it was like a bunch of kids from the hood playing a bunch of kids from the suburbs. Like that's how Minnesota plays defense. Boston just plays defense smart. Like they just move like together because
they use their feet, unlike Luka.
Because Dallas is basically just letting them play. Dallas is letting them play with, for a football reference, letting them play with an 8 in the box, man to man on the outside, and the safety is creeping down. And it's like, y'all not going to check to just a go route to one of these guys out here in man to man coverage and see if it works. Like, all right, Dallas, y'all not going to check to get Lively a screen for him at the paint, at the free throw line, and let him get the lob from Luka. Like Derek Jones Jr. should, when Tatum is the guy guarding Gafford or the closest defender, he should be screening him like a little back screen, roll off that and throw the lob. Even if he doesn't catch it, at least make Boston look for a different option. Because right now, I'm looking at Luka standing in the corner when Kyrie has the ball. Kyrie doesn't look for Luka to get him the ball back. He doesn't look for Luka the way Luka looks for everybody else on those little dribble drives. Like Kyrie's looking to score because he's looking to create space. So Luka just stands there. So it's like, okay, for this possession, we'll just leave Pritchard out there on Luka. We don't need him to help because Kyrie's not looking for him. And even with that, they're still in these games because Boston just, for some reason, just won't go to the paint. when you have a 21-point lead and it gets cut to 10, your next possession needs to be, I need to get to the free
Yeah,
throw
I
line.
want to say that lead evaporated in less than 5 minutes too.
Yo, like it was crazy because I was driving, right? I got in the car, third quarter ended, I left where I was at, got in the car, my daughter's in the back seat. She's driving. She wants to watch the migration on my phone while I'm driving. I'm like, hold on, let me check the score of the game. If it gets out of hand, I'll give you the phone. It's like a 35-minute drive. Get in the car, get the stream started. They're down 21 all of a sudden. I'm like, oh, it's 15 at the end of the third. They already hit 2 threes. I'm like, okay, this baby about to watch migration here in a few minutes. And then all of a sudden it's 18, then it's 16, then it's 13, and then it's 11. It's a timeout. I'm like, you should have called the timeout at 16. And then it gets down. And then when it gets down to like single digits, like 3, 2, like 1 in that range, I was like, did they, pause, blow their load trying to get the game back in? But then Luka gets the 2 fouls. And I was like, yo, you can't try to make that move with, especially a guy like Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown is playing like it's one-on-one. If he gets by you, you're a non-factor. Whoever's in front of him, I'm trying to dunk on you. I'm pulling up on you. Like, he is not playing Dallas as if they're game planning to stop him. He's literally looking at like, all right, you're done. I got by you. You're done. You can't jump me. I'm dunking this. And that's how he's playing. And Luka should have just let him come down. Not also let him blow by, but cut him off with your feet instead of trying to take the charges. Like, it's just such a bang
especially
play.
with 5 fouls.
Yeah, with 5 fouls.
Yeah, 4 minutes left in the game.
5 fouls, and it's
just
like
no IQ.
And
then he looks at the bench. You better challenge that, and it's like,
but the thing,
you know what? Just come sit your ass beside me.
I think his frustration, and we often refer back. I know we're talking a lot about Dallas, even though Boston is winning, they're probably going to win an NBA championship. He did the same thing in game 1 against OKC, where he just was yelling at everybody else, but he came back out game 2 like, yo, I'm Luka Doncic. Like, I'm Luka Durant out here. He hasn't had that snap yet. And I think maybe game 2, because they played hard in game 2 and still lost.
They did. Mm-hmm.
And I think I don't picture him or really remember him kind of engaging with the refs as much in game 2. And game 1 was such a blowout.
They were definitely letting them play, and that was the issue that I think a lot of people had with that call fouling him out, because it definitely was a foul. You can't argue that it was not a foul, but I think a lot of people were just looking at it as, you've been letting them play all night. Luka been getting beat up half the night, and then you're going to foul him out on that, even though Luka tried his damnedest to jump into the floor a couple of times to draw fouls, and he wasn't getting those either.
And we got to think about this too. It's not like baseball where you can just use a laser and say if this is a ball or strike or not, and completely get rid of the umpire and the referees. But you can't keep cussing somebody out for 3 hours and expect them to do you a favor at the end of the game. Like, you can't just be barking at me all night long and then think that I won't try to get you out of here. Because first of all, it wasn't the brightest of plays, but it wasn't egregious either. It was, you call a charge on Jaylen Brown and Mazzulla challenges it, I don't think they overturn it either.
No,
it didn't look. It just, I think the foul got called because Jaylen Brown hit the floor sideways. Like, if he would have gone through Luka, but I think the fact that it was like he's going to the basket and he fell towards the free throw line and you fell the other way. It's like, okay, you cut him off because he's going this way. He's allowed that space. You cut him off from going that way because you fell the opposite direction. But if you were there, he would have toppled over you. It's something in some form of fashion. It would have been like a little bit more direct. But the fact that he fell going the opposite direction, maybe he sold it. But, we talked about the bang bang play in 2018 with KD and LeBron. That block charge, the rent went through LeBron and they both fell straight back. The fact that they reversed it was like, that was mind blowing. But with the Luka case, it's like, yeah, you definitely cut him off because he fell this way. Like you bumped him out of his path. Yeah, it was a bad I don't know, it was a bad night, and it was a bad night to have a bad night. You know,
Yeah,
just
and I mean that's what
that's the
happens
biggest
though
problem.
when you're a petulant crybaby. You tend to make mistakes. You tend to do things out of frustration that bite you in the ass, and that's what happened. Luca got bit in the ass. So as far as Boston goes, I mentioned earlier they have too many options because Dallas, I would think, would like to funnel Boston into the paint where you got those trees down there, like they had the committee waiting for Anthony Edwards in the last series.
But they
But the
only play
problem
one at
is,
a
is that
time, though.
no, I know, but the problem is that Boston has too many ball handlers, too many capable shooters, and too many people that are willing to make the pass. So I'll come halfway down there, but as soon as you react to me like that, you can that left-handed pass that Drew Holiday made to Derek White, for the three, there's no defense for that. It
And
was just
then on top,
offhand.
like Boston has given Jason Kidd and the Dallas Mavericks a different look almost every time the ball gets taken out. There's times where Drew Holiday brings the ball up, Tatum brings the ball up, Brown brings the ball up, White brings the ball up, Pritchard brings the ball up. So then with that, immediately off that action, it's Hauser and Pritchard running action on the wing, which is way different than how it looks with Tatum and Horford. Or
And they
Brown
do it
and
as if
Horford.
they're the starters. There's no hesitation.
It's no
They're not thinking
hesitation.
about it. They just
It's like boom, jab, jab, hook. It's like we all in the gym boxing. That dude's a pro. I'm an amateur. I'm in here trying to get in shape, but we all running through this same drill. We're all hitting the bag at the same speed. We're all going for 3 minutes until the bell rings. Whereas Dallas, those guys don't look like they have any other responsibilities other than catch and shoot, try to knock down open threes because you're an NBA player. Like
right.
There's no if the three doesn't go in for Green, sorry, a lot of colored names in this series. But if the
we don't use the word colored anymore.
They'd be all right. If the shot doesn't fall for him, like what does he give you? Like I'm not saying like he hasn't contributed, but it's like if he doesn't, he's not a good on ball defender. He gives you hustle, but that hustle is negated if I know Drew Holiday is going to be in the corner. Like you can have Drew Holiday and Pritchard out there at the same time, and one will guard Kyrie, or if you put Drew Holiday on the bench, Luka's on the bench, you got Pritchard guarding Kyrie. Hauser's out there just trying to guard whomever, like maybe Hardaway Jr. or Derek. Like just it's like okay,
just
but I'm coming down here. I'm gonna pop this three when I come back down. Like right. I got 11 minutes I'm playing. I'm supposed to get up as many threes as I can in 11 minutes. Like so that's what I got. Pritchard's supposed to get me the ball. I put up 3, or I get him the ball. He puts up the 3. We go back to the bench. Drew Holiday or Horford come back in. Like that's the real plan.
Let me ask you a random question. I wasn't planning on asking this question, but since you said, "Hey, we're up here talking about Dallas," let me ask you a question about Boston. All right. So obviously in the moment, you're going to have a view, right? Boston had this easy path to the finals, whatever people are saying. 15 years from now, when we look back at this Celtics team, what will we say?
15, that's long.
10 years. What will we say about this team?
Like I said, like the way people kind of rate these teams is that's coaching. No, I'm saying that man, Mikey Joe Mazzulla, give him his credit. Depends on. I think what Boston did with their team in the offseason and how they are utilizing their guys in this playoff run, well, throughout the season.
Right.
If that becomes more of the standard for teams that have depth, every team is going to have 8 guys that you give the green light to shoot threes, like Boston does. I think Boston's probably like an 8 or 9, I believe, because you got the starting 5 that includes Horford. So all 5 of those guys have green lights. Hauser, Pritchard, Porzingis. Yeah, so you got about 8 guys that can shoot the three. If more teams go to that core star and then allowing the role players to play a real role in the game, then I think it'll be like the shift in the influence. It'll be like the new upgraded version of that Piston runs that kept going to Eastern Conference Finals. They just didn't have the firepower. They had the defensive prowess. But if other teams follow that model, then I think this would be like that transition would be like, yo, Boston showed the league that you can do this if you have these types of players. You could do it with a young coach. You could do it shooting a lot of threes. I don't know if every team is going to be able to do it. Right. I don't think they'll ever mention them with the greats, because we're going to talk about this criticism when we transition the case study. I just don't think that people are going to view either Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum's season as an all-time great season, nor will they view Mike, a.k.a. Joe Mazzulla, as a great coach.
Okay.
I don't think he has. Right. I don't think he has a personality that really like people. When Spo won in Miami, and when Billy Donovan won in Florida, then he went to OKC. Like, I think some coaches kind of bring that personality. Ime Udoka. I think people will rock with Ime Udoka. He's a big figure, like opposing. I think he's like 6'4". He played in the league. He didn't back down on LeBron. We saw that this year.
I think Ime is like 6'8", 6'9".
Nah, I think he's small. He's shorter than. He just got that NBA retirement body.
I got him listed at 6'6".
Like a 6'6", so 6'4".
Yeah. Yeah. But hey, since you brought it up, I mean, let's just go ahead and go there. You know what I mean? Like, we were talking about this case study from the standpoint of what is too much criticism, what is not enough criticism. There's a thin line. So, like, for example, the reason why this conversation came about is because, as I hang out with Cups in the gang, as I make my rounds, as I'm watching TV, people have told me and others that we criticize Jason Tatum way too much. And I think that to some degree, we don't criticize Jason Tatum enough. And it's not even about Jason Tatum. It's more so bending rules and logic, for individuals that you don't do it for others. So, for example,
don't try to use logic to get me on your side.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Coming back. I'm coming back with it.
No, not at all. But it's the same. But it's the same way that Jason Tatum is an MVP candidate. Probably considered a top 10 player in the league. So therefore, sometimes, though unfair, he gets criticism that comes along with being in that territory. But in the same breath, I could criticize Luka that same way. I could criticize Jokic that same way. I could criticize James Harden that same way that I just did a few minutes ago. And a lot of people won't bat an eye. But for some reason, you say Jason Tatum, it turns into everything else. He's young. He's got to grow. XYZ, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yo, Luka younger than him.
Yeah.
Like
I'm gonna argue all different points without.
No, I know. Yeah. But the point being is, what is that line? Because if you're considered a superstar or a star, you're considered to be a top 10 player, you're considered an MVP candidate. Why is criticism off limits?
All right. I don't think criticism is off limits. But to the Jason Tatum point, like we talked about earlier, I think the criticism is not tempered. I'm trying to get this right. I don't think the criticism is warranted as far as like comparing him to guys like James Harden, Luka, or like when things have gone poorly for other stars. mainly because the only reason he even has the expectation that he does is because the team that he's been on, Boston, he got drafted before Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown got drafted the next year.
Well, the other
They
way
have
around.
had no, it was
I
Tatum
think
first and Brown.
It was Brown first, wasn't it?
No, it was Tatum. Tatum's first, and then they got Brown the following year.
For some reason, I thought it was the other way.
Yeah. So they've had such success, and they've been on the proverbial doorstep. And for some reason, there's this expectation that because
It was
year
Brown first.
it was Brown first.
Yeah.
Bad. That's why we have a show. So Brown was first. Shout out to Cal. And then they got Tatum out of Duke. So they built their core, and he grew into a great player. But they've had such team success every year. Like they haven't had a poor year together since they've been in the league. You know, 6 or 7 years. They haven't had a bad year. They haven't had one of those years where it's like in the off season you're really considering who do you move, who do we bring in, who's available. They've been the Eastern Conference Finals. Was this like 6 out of 8 years or 5 out of 7 years, something along those lines?
8, yeah.
5 out of 8, and then NBA Finals now 2 out of the last 3 years. 2 years ago, when Steph Curry dropped 43, 44 points in Game 4, Tatum and Brown only dropped 44 combined. That was a game where you needed to step on someone's neck because that was your moment. Not necessarily because you were due, because you were overdue, because we had you as an MVP candidate and people had given you these.
But at
these
that time, he wasn't an MVP candidate.
Yeah, but it was just 2 years ago. You know, no one's giving you these arbitrary rankings of top 10, top 5, top 15 in the league. All these things haven't been levied on you, but you were just in the position to go up 3-1. You should have gone up 3-1. That's how I measure him. I think the criticism, we talked about this before, is like, I don't think just because a person's been in the league X amount of years, like they talk about with Luka. Luka's been in the league this many years. He needs to, get his team to a championship. Like, no, he needs to get a championship contending team, and then that team needs to go to the championship. This year, Jason Tatum has 2 years ago, even last year, but Miami just has like a thing where they can just kind of just wreck the East, and they've done it a couple of times. So it's like Miami's done this, and that was their MO. Their MO was like, we're gonna come through and shock the world. Boston caught that flack last year, and then with the rolled ankle in Game 7, couldn't do anything about it. So like this year, Game 3 last night, 31 points. He came out early, 18 points in the first half. He got the dunk at the end of the first quarter that made the game 31-30. Dallas played their heart out. But because he was making so many plays, when they went in to take that break between the first and second quarter, no one on the Dallas bench felt like that first quarter was as great as it was. 31 points in the quarter is a great quarter.
Mm-hmm.
But because the way he came out early set the tone for the rest of the game. It made, I think that frustrated Luka because at no point, they were up 12 in the first quarter. The audience was going bananas. I think the score was 13.
It was like 25-12.
25-12. And then you go into your break between quarters, 31-30. And you look up and Tatum and everyone's high-fiving because he got the dunk at the end. It was like the whole game shifted off of that. This is the year that I think all the criticism, all the people who are in favor of him and all the people who are criticizing him, this is the year where you really had all the evidence to prove either he is clutch or he isn't a top player or he is, because this year they had the team. So if he would have fallen, like if they were down 0-3 right now, playing the way that he played and not having these big moments, then he could be like, you know what? This is your second finals in 3 years. It's not about age. It's about now you have the experience. This team won 64 games. You were clear of the second place team by like 10 or 11 games. You were clear.
Probably more than that, to be honest.
You beat everybody by 11 points. This is the year where you got to win it.
But see, like to your point, right? Like something that you always say is, I have my opinion until the evidence changes or whatever, and then I change as the evidence changes.
As the facts change, so does my opinion. Shout out to Mike.
Yeah. So if you're talking about an individual game, so like game 1, in my eyes, Jason Tatum didn't have a great game 1 or whatever. So I'm like, hey, he didn't play well tonight. This is what I want to see from him going forward. Okay. Game 2 comes. He gets the assist, he gets the rebounds. He goes 6 for 22. And then I say, yo, in game 3, like, I need him to come out, put his foot down, announce himself, XYZ. Game 3 happens, he does that. I say, that's what I needed to see from Jason Tatum. This is why he's the best player on the team, because he's the player on the team that can do these things. But in the end, in between, all it is you're being harsh, you're a hater, and it's like, no, I'm talking game to game. I'm not trying to define his career. Just game to game, in a moment, you aren't playing well. I don't think there's nothing wrong with anything to say about that. To whereas, you being a LeBron fan, for example, you know what I
Correct.
mean? Any moment within a game, not even a whole game, any moment that LeBron does something like pass the ball to Kyle Korver is a referendum on how soft he is, how unclutch he is, even though he has more game winners than anybody else.
Yeah.
That's hate. You know what I'm saying? Like, but what I'm talking about in this particular game, as an MVP candidate or as a person that's being told to me is on Luka's level or on Giannis's level or whatever the case may be, this is the moment where you show that. He did it last night. So
Correct.
I have no criticism for him last night. But that's the point, is that we pick and choose, though, not like we as in me and you,
Yeah.
but the sports community at large chooses whom gets these criticisms. Matt Ryan, right? 28-3. Tony Romo is viewed as a choker, even though we saw games where he put up 48 points and his team obviously gave up more than that for him to lose. And yes, he made a bad play late that Bronco game. They lost 52-48. He threw the pick after the 2-minute warning. That's what people take away from the game, not the fact that Dallas gave up 52 points. But yet, when I'm looking at dudes like, say, Phillip Rivers or Drew Brees or whoever, when they fail, but they didn't have a defense, but they didn't have this. The logic isn't being applied across the board is the problem, not me.
What does they say? Heavy is a head that wears a crown. We talk about Jason Tatum because every season that he's been in the league, the season started in October, his team is still playing into May, pretty much every year for the last 5 or 6 years.
Right.
And now at this point, the last couple of years, into June. So when there's nothing else on TV as basketball wise, he's on TV. Jaylen Brown's on TV.
Right.
Steph was on TV. Jokic is on TV. Embiid had just, he was in TV in the playoffs, and then he's not there. But then the conversation, he's always part of the conversation because during the regular season, he's just so dynamic. Certain players just get that attention. We talked about this in the pre-meeting. I'm pretty sure Brandon Ingram can probably shoot, dribble, pass, and score the basketball just as efficiently as Jason Tatum. But we don't have conversations about him because his team, with his co-star being Zion Williamson, they're not on TV in May. They're not in primetime games. So
stop it, Mike.
We don't have that.
Stop it, Mike.
We'll get around the football too. So we look at Jason Tatum like, oh, he needs to be putting up these legendary numbers. But in all actuality, he is just part of a great team. And then him as a person and the unit that they have, he's not a detriment to his team. If I said something along the lines of like, I can see Brandon Ingram chucking up 4 or 5 shots in a row and will not want to give the ball to Zion with no information. I have no inside information. You can look at it like, you know what? I've watched the games. It does seem like something he would do. But Jason Tatum, they did the whole with Jason Kidd, that whole bump me when he was holding the ice thing. He's a mental tactician. Jaylen Brown's the best player on the team. Tatum didn't come out and like try to prove by not passing the ball or dribbling and having like 7, 8, 9, 10 turnovers like Luka did. Luka had like 8 turnovers in game 2.
Right.
Gary had
Right.
like 10 or 11 assists. We had 8 turnovers. And then on top of the like, some of the bad shots and everything else. So Tatum doesn't do that. So the criticism is often levied upon him is kind of related to those guys, and he doesn't fall apart like that. He doesn't hurt his team that way. Guys are gonna have games where they go 7 for 24. Dirk game 6 against Miami when they won a championship was like 7 for 20, 9 for 27. I mean, so
Yep.
it's like
Jason Terry for MVP, damn it.
and he won Finals MVP. So it's like it's just a matter of if your team wins, you're not going to get viewed the same way. But as far as the criticism, I think a lot of it is when we talk about Lamar Jackson. It was the criticism of him in the draft was so ridiculous and so visceral that when he won his MVP, people went back the other way. And now you can have an honest conversation. Like, for instance, his numbers last year weren't indicative of a typical NFL MVP season, no matter how you slice it. Josh Allen's numbers were. But he gets so criticized because he's in more playoff games. He's played more playoff games than Lamar. So when he comes up short in these playoff games, then the criticism is more visceral because he's closer to the championship rounds, losing the AFC championship game or getting beat in the second round or winning his division and, winning a playoff game. So he's played in more, quote unquote, big games than Lamar. So his criticism is just harsher because the expectation is you got to get to the next level because last year you were here.
No, 100%, 100%. But as teams lose, we say things like they ran into, he had to play. I never heard nobody say, but Josh Allen ran into Patrick Mahomes. What you want him to do?
No, like, I think people look at it like the kicker literally missed a game time, like a chip shot game time field goal for an NFL kicker. I mean, McCole Hardman fumbled at the goal line. They got the ball back. He got him in the field goal range. I mean, Tom Brady's first 3 Super Bowls were him getting kickers in the field goal range. So, like, getting your team to a position where you can score points is what quarterback's supposed to do. It's just that he's always playing games in late January that matter, and we see him. You don't see Trevor Lawrence and in his first few years playing meaningful playoff games. He had the one run against Kansas City when they lost, where he had the 4 interceptions, beat the Chargers, and came back, lost against Kansas City. But you see Josh Allen in the playoffs every year. Every year since they started making the playoffs, he's there every year. Double-digit wins every year. 30, 40 touchdowns combined between rushing and passing every year. So his criticism is because he's knocking on a doorstep, which is fine. But you get a lot of guys that don't get criticized at all because they don't get to the point where people actually watch. People don't watch the regular season, even in football. They watch the primetime games. That's why everyone keeps an eye on primetime games and how great it is for the primetime games and primetime records. But when it comes to actually studying a guy and having like an analysis of his position and his play, people just wait. They just wait to see what everyone else says in this group think and they just regurgitate it. And then when someone hits them with the facts, then it's an argument.
Hence MVPs. And that's why, like just like with your point with Lamar Jackson, right? Lamar Jackson, I've compared him and Jason Tatum in that way before. But another comparison that I like to do with Lamar Jackson is Chris Paul from the standpoint of, like you mentioned, his numbers, not being typical for an MVP. Correct. And this is where you get into definitions and expectations. So like Lamar Jackson has an argument for being MVP of the league because the Ravens are DOA without him, and the things that he does keep the Ravens where they are, keeps them alive, so on and so forth. But when you don't have that statistical framework, to go by, this is what previous years MVPs did.
Yeah,
that's where it looks like he's not the MVP.
It's a whole meal. Like, I like steak, but like you need all the accoutrement that go with it as well. It can't just be like, oh, this is a great steak. Like, okay, there's no
Right.
rice, no mashed potatoes, no asparagus. You know, we on the onions and mushrooms on the steak. It was just like, oh, it's a great steak. It's a great steak as well. Seasons cooked well, but we need the whole meal. So
But yeah,
that's the, you know, it's like I said, it's not a knock, but in the same sense, you're allowed to articulate that if you can do it, qualify and quantify it.
right.
I I
And
I
that's
think that
where
Josh Allen's season, it just was rocky in the middle. But I think coming down the stretch, the crunch time of the year, because we talked about teams that either limp into the playoffs or teams that, come into the playoffs hot. Well, what's if you're 6-6 and you got 5 games left and you win all 5 of them, you're still hot. Yeah, you had a mediocre run for your first 12 games, but they had to win all 5 games to win the division. Yeah, but they also won the last game against a division opponent who could have won, and they would have
on
won
the
the division
road.
on the road. So it's like they won this game, they won all these games. They were number 2 seed, so it's like they did what they were supposed to do. They hosted Kansas City. They just got beat by a better quarterback, a guy who's just more clutch. Another criticism piece I want to talk about real quick when it comes to football. Patrick Mahomes, like Rob Parker, literally brings up Patrick Mahomes' Super Bowl passing stats as if he hasn't won 3 Super Bowl MVPs. Like he talks about, like, well, I mean, look at these numbers. Just 9 touchdowns and 5 picks and 4 Super Bowls. I'm like, yeah, but 3 of them he won, and he was MVP of those 3. And it was like, well, he only has this many yards. Well, they had the punt return that got him to the 5. They had like he had 30,
Chris
40
Broussard,
rushing yards.
that's my sugar now.
Sugar up. But like he'll bring up the 9 touchdowns and the 5 picks in the Super Bowl, but not factor in that the 9th touchdown won him his 3rd Super Bowl MVP. So it's like the criticism, like the numbers are there, yeah, but the playoffs, he ignores the entire playoff stats, which are like astronomical. I think he has like more wins than like most of the legendary quarterbacks that we talk about, like from the Elways and Montanas and like the other guys, and the touchdowns and everything else. But like he'll focus in on the Super Bowl stats in particular, as if he hasn't won 3 out of 4. So it's just a weird way that people use criticism. And it's like, okay, he threw these interceptions, but he bounced back. He threw 2 in the first one, and then he came back and had 3 touchdowns. So it's like the bounce back is something that you don't convey either. So I think that's why I think a lot of the criticism is met with argument, because a lot of the conversations are simply, for lack of a better word, just hate. It just hate, or it's just you don't want this player to be nipping at the heels of your great icon, so you have to nitpick. But the problem with that is that if you nitpick that way, and then I go back and nitpick your star. So we talked about Larry Bird having, his first 3 games and 1 finals,
Yeah,
like 8, and 9, and the first 3 games of the finals. Granted, it was his first year, but it's like you want to call him a legend, and you want to bring up somebody else's stats, someone's going to bring that up. So it's just like that's the part that I just, if people just kind of stuck to understand the dynamic of the conversation versus just bloviating your opinion, you wouldn't be considered hate. Or if whoever you talk to was willing to listen to you say, like, listen, I want this guy to do well because he is regarded as this level of player. This level of player can't have back-to-back games like this. But yeah, like I said, I think Tatum had a great run. I think he redeemed the game 4 from 2 years ago in the NBA Finals, where they let Steph go bananas in their house when they could have gone up 3-1, to really locking it in last night and going up 3-0. Where it's like Luka didn't.
And seeing that one, I don't want to bang on them too bad for, because like I was saying earlier when I was on the hot box, this series like this that we're watching right now show how much experience matters. Like realistically, the only dude on Dallas with playoff experience or finals experience is Kyrie. Like everybody else, this is their first go round. Gafford was on the Wizards. Lively's a rookie. PJ Washington was on Charlotte. Derek Jones has been a career backup. That can just jump
but the
really high.
the experience piece is only the only person that's being average. The only person's behavior that looks like the experience is a shortcoming is Luka. Luka has probably the most experience behind Kyrie. Luka's the one acting like he's brand new to this. The rest of these guys are just playing to their standard.
But that's the thing. Going back to the conversation you were watching earlier with Nick Wright, Chris Broussard, and Kevin Wildes, Luka's putting up the points, and that's all a lot of people care about is the points. Like if you score 30 points, they don't care that it took you 27 shots to get it. They just see 30. Like just like we talk about Michael Jordan, right? Don't you do it, Mike? I'm just making a point. Just like when you talk about Michael Jordan, right? He's had games where he's had 29 points, and then he went 15 of 16 from the free throw line because his shot wasn't falling, but he was drawing fouls, whatever. But all people see is he averaged 31. You know what I'm saying? They don't contextualize it to the point of like, LeBron with the 8 points in the playoff game or whatever it was, Larry Bird with the 8 points in the playoff game. Michael Jordan went 3 for 18 in a game where his team could have eliminated their opponent. You know what I mean? But, you know what I mean? Like, he's Michael Jordan. He did enough that's just a blurb or whatever on his resume or whatever.
But I think most guys should have that leeway. The problem is, I don't say we're part of the problem, but it is a 24/7 news cycle. It's 11:52 right now. We're talking about the game from last night, and I'm pretty sure there's another podcast brewing up with a couple of friends who are sitting on the couch. They're to have another conversation, along with some former players that are having a conversation on their podcasts and their couches and their studios, whatever the case may be. So we dissect these players so much, but it's so much to digest that we only really look at the guys who are playing in singular prime time moments, the playoff runs or the prime time games. So you got the prime time Monday night matchups. You got the Ravens Chiefs matchups. You got the Monday night games where it's like real prime time matchups, not like when they have like they throw the Dolphins and the Cardinals on Monday Night Football. That's not like a marquee matchup that people watch. But if it was a Super Bowl, then people would have that information. They would critique the hell out of Kyler Murray, they critique the hell out of Tua. Depends on who won, or critique the coach.
The overall point that I just want to get out to people is that if you want to put somebody on a level, put somebody on a tier, if you want to toot this person's horn, all I need from you is to just step back if something goes awry or whatever. You don't have to say, I was wrong about this person. Just say tonight, this person didn't play well. You know what I mean? If just like Minnesota, right? You remember I was on here, Denver in 7. And then when Minnesota went up 2-0, I didn't say, it's because I came on here and I said, you know what, Minnesota? I was wrong about you. Like, I apologize. Like, y'all were obviously.
They lost 3 in a row.
They lost 3 in a row, and I was like, Denver in 7.
And that's the thing is like the sports cycle. I mean, it literally changes like the pages of a calendar. You gotta let it play out. And
right.
I think,
and that's the problem is that we don't these projections. Game 7, and then look at everything.
We look at Jason Tatum at 6'8", 6'9". We look at Paul George and say Paul George made it this far with this kind of team. We think Jason Tatum is Paul George 2.0. He should go this far. And it's like, that's it. Like, there's no like real expectation on how to get there. There's no real context or analysis. Like, how does Boston get to the NBA Finals? Oh, nope. They got 2 top 3 draft picks.
Just like next year, right? Next year, like, hypothetically, right? They stay the same. They don't make any moves. Maybe Horford moves on, whatever. They go to what? The second round, get eliminated like Denver did this year. You know what I mean? Maybe they go to the Eastern Conference Finals, get eliminated. People are going to say,
who are waiting for to say Jason Tatum's a fraud because they're going to have that cannon loaded from tomorrow night.
Yep.
They're probably going to end it tomorrow night. And as soon as he gets eliminated in the second round next year, it's going to be like, see, we told you last year was a fluke. It was an easy run.
Yep.
Dallas took out all the good teams out west, and they retired when they got to the finals, and Luka was injured. and his chest and sternum was all separated.
Yep.
He was playing with a dislocated eye socket, and his eardrum was blown. But Lucas still went out there and put 40 on him. It's going to be all the same conjecture that we deal with every year.
It reminds me when I watch college basketball, sometimes even college football, and you got the number one team in your place, and you pull the upset and you're screaming overrated, and it's like you don't even realize you're shitting on yourself.
Yeah.
Like you don't, your logic ain't true to you because you ain't true to your logic. That is what it is. But you know what, fans? We are true to you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your time. Like, review, subscribe. Boston is more than likely going to close this thing out tomorrow. So you know what that means. NFL's coming up. College football's coming up. MLB All-Star game before you know it. And no, I did not forget that the Stanley Cups are going on right now. You know what I'm saying? So we are out here in these streets. Sports Reports is ordered. Do all the free things. Tell grandma hey and good night. We love her. We love you. And we'll see you on Monday. Peace.